Laptops are such an exciting category right now thanks to all these new changes happening on the processor level. Whether that means better performance, better efficiency, or new AI capabilities, there's a lot to look forward to. And with AMD at the helm, the latest Zenbook by ASUS is pioneering some of that change, this time in a way that might be a lower barrier of entry for people who just want something that works. Even better, this laptop that just works is also one of the sleekest and the prettiest that I've seen in a while, and it might be my new favorite Windows laptop. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This is the ASUS Zenbook S16. Before we get started, I'm giving the quick disclaimer that ASUS did send me this brand new Zenbook S16, and they are sponsoring this video. But all that being said, all opinions in this video are my own, and ASUS did not have editorial approval. They can only give correctional notes on facts and specs regarding this laptop. And finally, if you want to check out this laptop for yourself, I do have some links downstairs for you to use if this AMD Ryzen AI powered laptop is exactly what you've been waiting for. ASUS has done a great job of revamping their designs across many of their lineups, from as far as the aggressive ROG products right down to the Zen approach of these Zenbooks. Putting a ceramic coating over the aluminum chassis ended up with what ASUS calls Ceraluminum, and the result is a pleasing matted sheen on the cover that goes really well with the silver colorway that I have throughout my unit. There is a darker gray version of this laptop and it manages to stand out on its own as well. Leave it to ASUS to find a way to make a utilitarian design somehow pop, given the A logo on the cover, those clean lines, and the almost space-age stylings of the grille above the keyboard deck. Not to mention, the fact that ASUS was able to inject this much style into a thin and light frame is really impressive. This thing is just about 1.2 centimeters thick, which is about half an inch, and it weighs only 3.3 pounds. For the kind of package that sums up the Zenbook S16, that's quite impressive. After all, it is thick enough to fit a full-sized USB-A port, which you do get right over here, and that port is handy for the occasional mouse that I have used for video editing and maybe some gaming. By the way, we'll get more into the video editing and general performance a bit later, but on that note, take a look at this. A full-sized SD card slot right next to that USB-A port. Most laptops with the chops to handle higher workloads like image and video editing usually stumble by not including something like an SD card slot. Creatives like us could always use a good one built right in. And then on the other side here, the HDMI port also has just enough room to be included, and then there are USB-C 4.0 ports that double up for power delivery charging next to the headphone jack. As far as the essentials are concerned, you clearly got them here. Those essentials are definitely easy to appreciate once you open up the notebook. It's easy to do with one hand, by the way. There may not be a physical webcam cover up top, but it's possible to deactivate it just using one of the shortcuts in the F keys. That being said, the webcam does work well for Windows Hello. And despite the larger size of this laptop due to the screen, ASUS decided not to overwhelm the deck by adding a number pad on the side. It's a super personal thing, but I have gotten really used to typing numbers using the upper row, so I barely ever use a numpad that then requires me to shift myself over to the left a little bit. True to the Zen moniker, everything here is centered. The keyboard feels really nice too. It's a pretty standard chiclet keyboard backlit by white LEDs. The key travel is fairly shallow, but I can get some fast typing done without any issues. Oh, and of course, you have the Copilot key right down here. And yet underneath that, you can see this huge touchpad right here, which gives a ton of space for various Windows gestures. But ASUS also went ahead and added a few of their own. The very sides of the area can be used to swipe up and down to control the brightness and the volume levels, with the top portion over here getting used for scrubbing in media applications like if you're on YouTube. It's a neat trick that I at first appreciated but then quickly turned off because my hands kept brushing up against it given my typing style. It also isn't something that feels obvious to do compared to the tactility of a button press. I love that ASUS have made OLED almost a given in many of their products now. Pretty much any laptop that I would want from the brand basically starts with the 16x10 3K OLED touchscreen at the top of the spec list, which always makes it clear work and media and play are all going to come through nice and vivid. While work is what I've done the most on this laptop in the week or so that I've had it so far, any breaks that I take on YouTube or Netflix or even Peacock for Olympics coverage or WWE, they prove a treat for the eyes. And I have to give this laptop some props. The bottom firing speakers coming through the slits on either side actually sound pretty good. Again, given how thin this laptop is, the audio is coming through quite loud and clear, and manages to have some of the lower frequencies tuned well enough for spoken word content in particular. Just don't expect to be bumping the bass much in plenty of music genres though. So all in all, the outer shell and the essentials that are put into it provide a bonus to the engine that we've been waiting to see in action for some time now. As an x86 system, anything new that comes around shouldn't have many issues with compatibility. That conversation is currently ongoing on the ARM side of things, and don't worry, I'm checking out one of those laptops from ASUS and Snapdragon as well. But there's no reason to believe the projected gains that we've been hearing from that side of the processing conversation can't be experienced with proper optimization. And despite how inefficient the naming conventions might be, I can safely tell you that this is one hell of a step forward for Windows notebooks. What I have in my review unit is the AMD Ryzen AI 9 365, backed by the Radeon 880M integrated graphics. Under the covers here, you'd be able to see two small fans right here and here, and then a very thin vapor chamber for cooling, all of which do their best to keep things running cooler and smoother for longer. Now that being said, the super thin body doesn't give a whole ton of room to breathe when the heat is really on. Now I'm talking for like intensive gaming sessions or editing with more complicated graphics in things like DaVinci Resolve. Things can still get pretty warm under those scenarios in this upper area of the keyboard. But that doesn't stop me from doing many of those harder workloads. As in the past week, I've edited a few short-form videos, and the very video that you're watching right now in DaVinci Resolve. The only real concession that I had to make for more comfortable editing was making proxies before even getting started. It is an extra step that requires me to start it and then walk away and do something else for a while, but once that's done, I can hit the ground running pretty effectively. And let me tell you, editing on a display like this is a bonus that is moving more into the realm of necessity. And the same goes for gaming. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that Zenbooks are never really meant to be gaming beasts. AAA titles that require as much cooling as they do power will likely require low to medium settings for comfortable frame rates, and even then you might be experiencing some hiccups here and there. This is also all on top of assuming that the new AMD architecture is actually optimized for those particular demands. The Radeon 880M graphics in my laptop probably will give us a pretty good look into what the future handheld gaming PCs might look like and might be rocking in terms of performance. But in a laptop with far less room for cooling that also has to power a big beautiful OLED like this, we just have to expect that some sort of concession will have to be made. Now, that said, I found games like Zenless Zone Zero to be just fine in this setup, as was my ongoing return to Street Fighter 6 at a lower resolution with low to medium graphics settings. So while it's easy for me to say that I would have my ROG Ally X on hand for any gaming aside the Zenbook, it's good to know that I can still do some on the notebook when I feel like it. But what I can tell you is that this Zenbook really excels at pretty much everything else, and by that I mean the more normal daily workflows that most people might be doing. I gotta tell you, just doing typical tasks like responding to emails and browsing the net and writing scripts and watching YouTube in a little window on the side, it all feels sublime on the Zenbook S16. The 365 processor in here with 24GB of RAM and then the 78 Wh battery have felt buttery smooth throughout. What gets me the most about the experience here though is how seamless it feels to go from one place to another, both within Windows and then IRL. It's exciting that we're moving into a new era of Windows notebooks where we can actually close the laptop at one point, let it sit, or maybe put it in a bag and bring it somewhere, and then open it up and get back to it without many hiccups and without losing more than a few % of battery life, depending on how long it was asleep. Sure, there might be some periods of hibernation during those long bouts of inactivity, but the fact remains that going from working to chilling to working again is as easy as it has ever been for me. And because of how efficient the Ryzen AI processor is here, these typical everyday workflows can actually go for full days. I've gone for long sessions just plugging away without having to even plug in. I don't do synthetic benchmarking, so I can't really give you those kinds of numbers, but I can tell you that working from 10 AM to 6 PM here in my office with normal automatic sleeping and the occasional plugging in to do higher power tasks, it was all easy and without any range anxiety. And I am confident that this Zenbook will handle the same kind of workloads on long flights or if I'm out and about working from cafes. Of course, the only real hiccups that might end up happening sometimes is when Windows needs to update, so I had to do a quick restart in the middle of filming this A-roll. That does bring us to the buzzword that I'm sure you've been expecting me to say eventually. AI. It's in the name of this processor after all, in the sticker right beneath the keyboard. These new Ryzen 9 AI processors tackle this new world of artificial intelligence by offloading a lot of the processing that those tasks might demand to a dedicated NPU. So it's all about exploring the new ways that AI add to these flows. Part of that happens right when you hit this button over on the side, and that is the Copilot button. You might be familiar with Copilot by now, the AI companion that is able to answer questions, generate text based on prompts, and make images seemingly out of thin air. There are times when it does come in handy for me, like when I might need some ideas on how to say something in a social media post, or when I want a quick summary of stuff that might be happening in the news right now. Like for example, let's go ahead and do that. Give me the synopsis of today's Olympic Games. But like most AI applications right now, you really only get out of it what you put into it, and that's the rub. It's going to take some time until we get into the mindset and make AI an indelible part of our daily work lives that already exist. For now, I prefer instead the way that an NPU in a processor like this is helping in specific tasks without me really knowing. Copilot is really in your face, but AI noise cancellation in video calls is just something that works and is effective. The same goes for certain features in DaVinci Resolve, like making subtitles from my timeline audio, or using voice isolation for my talking head A-roll. That's exactly what I was using right now to make this A-roll. I think more of the actual AI features need to be programmed or presented in such a way that is seamlessly integrated into what we already do. So all in all, what we are seeing here in the Zenbook S16 is a new generation of laptops that are getting the basics absolutely right, with everything above that threshold requiring a little bit of either patience or managed expectations. We're in a great place with these new laptops already, and that's saying a lot for new architectures and the fact that AI is trying to evolve the entire space. The Zenbook S16 sits right in the middle as a laptop ready to take on the future, but is perfectly capable of making the present feel great. And for anyone looking for a premium feeling laptop for daily work and play, this one definitely feels premium inside and out. Sure, for other types of users like hardcore gamers and creatives, this is the type of sleek and pretty laptop that we crave, but they require extra things like a discrete GPU to really go hard in those particular scenarios. But even those users and pretty much everybody else can sit with Zen contentment thanks to this new generation of laptops started with the Zenbook S16. So let me know what you think about this new laptop and of course the new AMD Ryzen AI processors in the comments, and to learn more about this laptop and potentially get it for yourself, I have links in the description and in the pinned comment below. With all that said though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today. Thanks again to ASUS for sponsoring this look at the Zenbook S16. Please take care of yourselves and each other and enjoy your tea, everybody.